Orrin, it is a delight having you on the Business of Intuition. I'm really excited about this conversation. And, before we started hitting the record button, we were talking about really powerful sentence that you have associated with you and your company, which is supporting the dreams of the doers. I love that. It has so much power and so much movement in that. And I want to just sort of tee up this question with this. AI has become so ubiquitous in our life. We've got Chat GPT, which has just gone by storm over the last 2 weeks, and we are having this conversation on January 16th of 2023. Feels like something very disruptive. So like the responsibility and the brain work of writers now may very well be supplanted by this AI technology. I'm reading a book right now called The Last Invention, which is all about this idea that AI is going to slowly begin to take over what it is to be human. I think that intuition is one of our last great frontiers of what it is to be human, that it's going to be the hardest to replicate in AI. And so with all of this sort of background description that I provide you, tell us more about this idea around supporting the dreams of the doers when you are also a technology company, where technology might be doing things that no more do we need to do. So how do you bring in the doer side of human beings with the fact that you're a tech company? Just bring some clarity to that. I think it's a very powerful sentence, and I want to get into this.
Yeah, sure. Now, a lot of people in the technology industry, Dean, this is their passion. They love it. And even though they might be done with their workday, a lot of times the real technical team members and engineers, they're going to go home and play anyway. And they're going to go and play with machine learning. They're going to go and play with various AI type tools, etc. So we realized pretty early on that and just based on the nature of technology, and when there is a serious issue or downtime, you need all hands on deck. We realized pretty early on, going as far back as 2004, that if we were going to succeed as a business, we had to have a culture that embraced the idea of doing truly great work, but also that people were balanced and they could be active and engaged parents and partners and in whatever capacity they find themselves in life. So it's something that I call it aspirational, because the bottom line is there are times where things are very intense and you might have 2 or 3 weeks of not being balanced. But on the whole, the aspirations of our culture are that you can be balanced and do truly great work. Because when you just look at the quality of thinking, when someone is actually in a place that they're truly engaged, it is significantly amplified. Tony Schwartz and Jim Liu wrote a great book called The Power of Full Engagement, where they
love that book.
Yeah, early on, they were advocating that you could get as much productivity from someone out of an 8-hour day. And they were postulating it, but it's actually been proven now that if someone is balanced and healthy and finds meaning in their work, and they're able to be present in their personal lives as well, you're going to get a lot more productivity and innovation out of them. So that's really sort of some of the background and context. And then just to talk to your initial point around the likes of ChatGPT and any of this technology that is going to have a significant impact on the way we work, what we hope is that it's just going to rise, the water level will rise as far as the level of work we can do for our customers to actually have a meaningful impact on their business. So take, for instance, Microsoft Power Platform as an example. So Microsoft's Power Platform is a technology stack that is advocating low to no code development. So what happens if we could leverage the likes of ChatGPT or other AI platforms to write that code, that low code? It just can accelerate the impact that we can have. And there are probably going to be times where we're going to need to reframe and rethink, and our competitive advantage is going to be impacted. But sure, we've lived in the tech space for a long time, and these changes come about all the time.
Well, let's just there's so much on this, and it is the topic of the day. So let's get into it. When it goes to Chat GPT, I found myself needing to write an article, and I thought, what the hell? I'll give it a shot. I created please write an article, 500 to 600 words with this particular title, and gosh darn it if it didn't do it. And if it wasn't like 80% there, that I needed to put my own spin, my own voice into it. Now, in the back of my mind, my father, who is long since passed, who was a 35, 40-year reporter for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, is turning over in his grave. I can feel his space and his energy going like, what is your point of view, Dean? Why are you pushing this off on technology? And I'm a firm believer that writing is a process of thinking. It's a thinking process. And if we just begin to turn that over to technology, then where are we going to get fat, sloppy in our thinking because we don't write anymore. We no longer are writing as much as we used to. And I got to tell you, I was at a point in time where I was thinking like, I don't have a lot of time. I got a deadline. I'm traveling. I'm on planes. Oh, what the hell? Let's try this ChatGPT thing out and see if it works. Holy shit, it worked, right? Yeah. And I started feeling guilty by doing it. So my thought is, how do we create this environment where we have technology that is doing some of this work for us without it eroding some of the things that makes us human? And I guess the ChatGPT thing is part of what I wanted to get your thoughts on, since you're in the space.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's interesting. I saw that even in the New York schooling system, they're investing or researching fine technology to make sure that kids are actually doing their own work. And there are quite a few startups that are getting early round funding to do exactly this as well, to be able to see, was this actually written or was it simply AI generated? So I think it'll breed its own ecosystem, which will carry a whole lot of opportunity. I look back to, I did econometrics as one of my majors at university, and I just think some of the maths that we had to do, and now I never do that maths anymore. So
you said math, M-A-T-H?
Some of the math,
of
the math that I would have to do. Reverse integrations, and it was just, and I don't really do any of that level of math anymore. So, what impact has that had on my quality of thinking? And I think it's evolved into different places: strategy, differentiation, marketing, M&A. So yeah, I suppose is it going to have an overall negative impact on the cognitive lifting that we do in respective parts of our lives or our jobs and careers? And hopefully what it does is it elevates the level. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a really interesting question. Did you submit your article, and how was it received?
Yeah, no, actually, and I did play around with it, and I do know that there's websites out there that will take your particular ChatGPT written article and give you some sort of an indication as to whether or not Google is going to indicate it as being man-made or machine-made, and then you realize you got to change it up to be able to, look like it was made by you. And I understand all that to the degree that I can at this point. But I love the thought that you just sort of spoke to around sort of up-leveling our thinking, that maybe ChatGPT and other types of technologies, which there have been many over the years, right? To your point, we no longer walk to work, we drive to work. One could say that we've gotten flabby metaphorically and actual ways, because we are no longer as physically active, because technology is transporting us around. We can make that argument as long as humankind has been around. As soon as we create an innovation, the human being becomes less involved, but it also elevates our thinking. And I'm wondering if some ways, I'm going to go woo-woo on you on this, is that are these technologies allowing us to be thinking at a higher level, being more elevated in our thoughts, maybe even at a kind of an altitude that is more big picture, maybe even more spiritual or intuitive, because some of the grunt work of thinking is being done by AI. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a really it's an interesting concept, and I think when we look at most progress that is made scientifically or in engineering or in medicine, 9 times out of 10, in that particular new invention, if you would call it, there are 7 other inventions that we use to get to that point. And hopefully this is how AI can and these types of technologies can be leveraged to just elevate the more rudimentary, repetitive thinking and tasks that we might have to do. And in turn, so we all move a little bit further up Maslow's hierarchy sooner. So yeah, I'm not an expert on it, but I've always been fascinated how sometimes modern scientists are given so much credit for what they've come up with, but there were 20,000 other inventions and white papers and patents that were leveraged to get to that point. I read the book Super Intelligence on AI, must have been about five years ago. And, the dynamic of the fear of the success of AI if it were uncontrolled. And I think that piece is still there, and I haven't yet wrapped my mind around that. But if it can be harnessed, I must hope it will only do good. Because you take, to give you an example, there's a famous archaeologist / anthropologist called Professor Lee Berger. He's actually out of Texas. He lives in South Africa. Okay, and so there is a basin in South Africa where the majority of all prehistoric remains that are the earliest prehistoric remains of mankind, and there are just tons of them there. And what he did, okay, to be able to accelerate his progress was he open sourced the find. So now he's found the fossil, okay? So typically what someone in his position would have to do, you have to go to the government or the university and ask for funds to be able to vet and verify that find is actually what he thinks it is. So it's a massive process and a lot of course. So open source the find to various top universities around the world. So this hugely accelerated his ability confirm, carbon date, and do all of these things. And I think there is a hope in me and optimism that this elevation will result in faster progress and us reaching breakthroughs with major global issues, hopefully a lot sooner.
Let me ask you a question. This is very philosophic. We're talking about technology having a place in our lives for good, and that it can take some of the grunt work out of being human and relegate it to, a program, an algorithm, etc. From your perspective, what is a quintessential human characteristic that should not be automated, that should not be something that we give technology over to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I immediately thought of listening. And when you engage with someone and they're such a good listener, it does something to the quality of our thinking. And Nancy Klein wrote a great book called Time to Think, where she talks about listening in your culture, in your organization, and people know they will be heard and what it does to the overall quality of thinking. And sometimes, when I was at a friend of mine's 2 days ago and I was sitting just watching his Alexa listening because the lights move, and I didn't feel like my quality of my thinking was amplified by that. I felt like it was disturbed, But I think listening actively is something that I don't know if in the context of a human relationship, that is something that can ever be automated.
A great point. And yet you have a tagline that says we support the dreams of the doers. Can you be a doer and a listener at the same time? Does doing sometimes cloud out the listening?
Yeah. No, so there's two sides to the spectrum. On the one, I love the idea of our dream books in the context of supporting the dreams of the doers, which is basically your top 10 personal goals and dreams visualized. So it takes you through a process of coming up with this list. You might start with 50 or 80, and then you narrow it down to your top 10. So sometimes what I've heard myself say in some of our dream group meetings, and when we're launching the program, relaunching it every year, we've been doing it since 2008, it empowers what you say no to. So if you know it's not in your dream book or in your goals of what you want, then it gives you a fortitude to say no. But in the same breath, I think, and I added an 11th goal to my dream book 2 years ago now, and I've left it, and I'm planning to leave it in for this year, which came from the book, The Surrender Experiment. And I just put in my last goal, surrender, and I've got a picture of a meandering river. And the idea that, just keep my heart and soul open, because I don't know what else might be coming, even though I've got a very clear view of what I do want in my life. So yeah, I think it's good to still keep an open heart and mind and listen to things that are coming your way that might not be on your path or in your set of goals right now. But in the same breath, say no to the things that are not serving you, and that are stealing time and not adding value. So yeah, I think you can be a great listener and a doer. And I actually go as far as to say, I think personally, I have constantly wanted to be a better listener, and I think it is such a powerful glue and nurturing dynamic in any relationship if someone can just feel heard.
I agree. I think that we all walk around with that as a kind of a unseen billboard that says, would somebody just listen?
No,
Because that becomes the point of connection, and there's nothing more powerful than feeling that the sentient being with this little shell called skin and bones and flesh has some sort of a connection to other skin and bones and flesh entities out there. And that when we start to feel this connection, we rise up to something that's a greater experience than ourselves. That somebody on a podcast episode a while back said, basically, our biggest fears are really not public speaking. It's really being alone. It's really being disconnected. It's being rejected. It's being forgotten. It's not being included. I mean, these are really core, primal, deep-seated, 0 to 7 years old kind of fears that we walk around with. But by listening, to your point, we bridge that gap. And it doesn't mean that in my listening with you that I necessarily agree. It just means that I understand.
Yes,
and that form of understanding, I think we get confused with agreement.
No, and you look, Dean, as entrepreneurs, we often want to fix things. And
Yes.
like I've heard this, so in some of my relationships, someone in my family has had an illness for a long time. It doesn't totally debilitate them, but it gets them down. And I'm always like, okay, have we tried this? Why don't we do this? And like what I realized over time is they actually just want to know I'm hearing, and that I'm actually showing empathy, and I don't actually need to try and fix it. So last year I had quite a lot of family loss, and so, and I'm an optimist through and through. So and I'm trying to make sense of this loss, and I've been reading this book called The Five Invitations, which is just such a powerful piece of work. And this gentleman basically saw thousands of people through the last hours and days and weeks of their lives. And it's fascinating to hear how many of these people, that concept, they just don't want to be alone, and they just want to feel that someone is hearing them talk and actually being there for them when they cannot fix anything.
What's the name of that book again?
The Five Invitations.
Yeah, I think I've heard that, but I want to call that out. That's very, very powerful. You're just
Frank Ostaseski is his name.
There's I'm my wife and I have a son, and he's going through some struggles, and I find that myself thinking like, all right, what else can I tell him? How else can I give him good direction and guidance? What other resource can I do? My mind's always on that fix it mode, and I just caught myself, as you were saying, around just being there to listen and to connect and to be present is probably more important than anything else I can do. And when I'm there with him in that space, it doesn't necessarily mean things get better, but at least during that time with him, we have a moment, and the moments are what make life happen. That's a really good reminder. Thank you for that. Tony Schwartz, you mentioned that book, The Powerful Engagement, which is a book that was written a while back. And for those of you who haven't read it, it's a great, really interesting book, but he did a great study comparing the way in which we do performance in business versus the way in which we do performance in professional sports. And of course, they're very, very different. My question on the book and around this topic around doing humanity and balance is, what is this your perspective that having that balance and all the things you've talked about with listening and creating these dreams and clarity around direction, is that how we keep our humanity, and is that how we keep becoming the doers that are fulfilling on their dreams? Is that part of the recipe? Is that balance from the doer to the person who's repairing, the action-oriented fixer, and the person who's also resting and recharging their batteries? I mean, say more about all that.
Yeah, sure. I think there's a part in the way we've adopted the process, and I'm sure many people do sort of an annual planning in their lives and think about what worked in the last year and what do they want to change in the year ahead and what would they like to achieve. There's something in the iterative approach of that where each year, I've been doing it since 2004. And each year you reflect on, how did last year go and what do I want in the year ahead? And as we evolve and change, so what's in our goals changes. Some typical things in someone's life, they go from being single to an inner relationship. You can see it in their dream book in our business. You can see straight away. Then you can see when they've had a child. You can see it very, very clearly. So I think the iterative nature of it, as far as reflecting on what you achieved and then building that into the year ahead, I think is very powerful. But I think outside of the actual top 10 goals and dreams, which is what we call a dream book, just having this vision for your life. A lot of sort of books and people that are experts in this space talk about the idea of take a blank page and write down what do you want your life to look like in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And I think that in itself is a very powerful exercise. But there's something, Dean, that I find happens. So like you meet someone, or maybe it's in your workplace, you've kind of met this person, you had a coffee, you never really had a very deep conversation, you worked on some projects together. We can't help but form a view of someone. Okay. And I think one of the most sacred things we can do in our lives is to connect with other humans in a deep and meaningful way. So what I found this process does within our culture, and I listened to one of your podcasts where the gentleman was talking about building culture in a totally remote workforce. We used to be totally in office. We're mostly remote now, although we do still have office space in all the cities that we operate. We do this thing called a dream connect. So where you meet with someone for 30 minutes, okay, and you share a little bit of your life and your goals and dreams. And it's crazy how you could have worked with someone for a year or two, you think you know them, and then in an authentic way, they share some of their life with you and what they really want in their lives. There's something in the human spirit that just makes us connect if it's done. And that connection, I find to be, it surprises me every single time. And I just come out of it inspired, because also I think in the human spirit, we want to see people achieve the meaningful good things in their life. So it creates this rising of the water level the more it happens. So it's definitely, I feel, and maybe just to come back to your question, yeah, I think, the idea of this having a positive impact on one's life, there are many elements of it which I think really, really do.
I love the exercise. You said it was called a Dream Connect.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, good. Where you sort of share some life history, but also what your dreams are moving forward.
Yes.
I'm absolutely on board with that 100%. And I just wanted to ask a question for maybe somebody who's out there listening, that there are certain people at certain times in their life when they can do that, when they're apt to do that, in a way, what we're doing is we're speaking to the choir, those who are already on board with this idea around, I have the ability to dream and to have some hope that I can fulfill on that. There are times that I remember early on in my career, a long time ago, I would sometimes say, yes, I would go through an exercise similar to what you just said in a workshop. And part of me would be a little voice of doubt that says, yeah, but this is not going to happen. This is too big, my parents never even got halfway through. They never created half of what I'm talking about here. Yeah. So there was this imposter syndrome that started to seep in to my thinking. And of course, and then I felt guilty for having the imposter syndrome because I realized the imposter syndrome was going to be the very thing that was going to hold me back from those dreams. Right. So then it became this sort of like, a sock in a, a dryer going around and around and around on this. Right. And so how can we work with people, and maybe we can't, where they don't have that sense that they can do their dreams. Ergo, why would I even want to spend time thinking about them? Because it's just an exercise in feeling disappointed.
Yeah, no, it's such an interesting topic, the imposter syndrome. So, I'm a member of YPO in the Manhattan chapter, and I'm a member of EO New York. And some of the most inspirational leaders and entrepreneurs I know have some of the most intense imposter syndromes. Like
I agree.
to the extent my
Yeah.
one friend, I'm like, I almost want to, like, we're not allowed to do this in these groups. And I just want to film something. I was like, dude, just stop it already. It's bullshit. But like, you can't, because it's real. I feel it too. And I think, yeah, so there's a piece to it which I think it's in all of us in some way or another. And having just seen some of the successful people that I've been able to connect with, and they still have it, I think it's such a natural part of being human. And yeah, so and I think that the idea so my dad passed in May last year, and I went through it. I really had like 4 months where things were just dark, and I'm an optimist, and it was a dark period, and I saw this quote, and I don't remember it offhand, but it was something like, life is too short to not dream dreams that scare you, you know. And actually, like, when last and this is kind of from a question for myself, when last did I feel butterflies in my stomach, where I'm like, wow, this is really nerve-wracking. That kind of makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And it's just, yeah, I suppose it's we get one crack at this, and why not do things that really are going to scare you and challenge you? And worst case, if you want to build $1 billion business, and then you end up building a $10 million business, who would have known what would have happened if you only made it $10 million? So I always think
Right.
there's the dynamic and this thing that unfolds. Yeah, but so many of us have this imposter syndrome in some way or another. And we all, I even sometimes have looked at the goals that I've set in times of insecurity and been like, wow, that looks crazy.
Right. By the way, I'm sorry for your loss.
No, thank you.
It's a hard one. That sticks with you for a while, and I'll say that, my father passed a while back, but I still think about him almost every other day. He's a huge force in my life. His messages, his thoughts, his spirit still inhabit my brain. What I'm getting out of all this, which I didn't really catch before, was that the work in some ways is to acknowledge the fact that the imposter syndrome, and to overcome that, the one's ability to believe in oneself is the work, and that the goals that we are going after are almost, in the big scheme of things, not as important as getting past those imposter syndromes, that the ability to really feel empowered, to really feel that you are totally able to move forward without those doubts, and that they, like, almost to embrace the imposter syndrome. But this is my work. This is what I'm here to do. The goal that I'm shooting for, whether it be whatever it is the playing field by which I'm going to create something in my life. But spiritually, deeply, soully, it's to work through some of this stuff that's been holding me back, and that we all are held back from. Yes. And that is quintessential human. That is not AI. That is not Chat GPT. That is the evolution of the human spirit.
Yeah, 100%. No, it makes me think a good friend of mine had a heart scare, and he went for his blood tests, and he's healthy, eats healthy, physically active. Went for blood tests, didn't pick up anything in his blood. They did the one where they kind of do your heart rhythm with a CT. I can't remember what that's called, and didn't pick up anything. And then he did a CT angio, and one of his arteries were 90% blocked. So I went and did it, because I'm 48, and there's propensity for heart disease in my life, in my family. And so they did the angio. So fortunately, no narrowing, but there is non-calcified plaque build up some level on my artery. So I spoke to this one doctor I really respect very much, and he said, this is how you need to change your diet. So this was 6 weeks ago. And I've changed my diet since then. So I don't have the results saying I've sorted it out, but just the fact that my eating is so controlled and in a better place I'm literally that sort of self-sabotaging when you just eat bad and you keep on doing it and so forth is gone. So yeah, I think sometimes it's that when you feel you have control of the situation, it almost feels as good as achieving the actual goal.
Exactly. I really appreciate that. You're right on. You mentioned something earlier about a dreams program.
Yes.
Could you give us a high level of what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. So our dreams program has various parts to it. At the beginning of the year, you do your dream book. So there's a process to brainstorm your goals and dreams across the 8 spokes of the wheel of life, and then you narrow it down to your top 10. You then get put into a dream group where you meet once a month. So it's plus or minus 8 people in the group. It's during working hours. Some people choose to do it at night or on the weekends, whatever it might be. And you share. So one of the methods is a rosebud and a thorn. So you give an update in the last month. What is a rose? Something happy that happened. What is a bud? Something that's starting to happen. And what a thorn? What was something that was difficult? You share your dream groups, dream book in that group. So those people get to know you really, really deeply. You can present a challenge you might be facing in your life. And then there's an approach where people can share similar experience. So that's a monthly rhythm. It's typically an hour or two. And then we also have a weekly rhythm in the Dreams program, Dean, where you do something called a Dreams Week in Advance, which is before 12 o'clock on a Monday. What are the 3 things? You can do more. Generally, it's 3 to 5. You want to get done this week, that no matter how crazy the week gets, no matter what hits you, you're going to make sure those 3 to 5 things get done. And then that circulates to your dream manager, so your dream coach, sorry. So each dream group has a dream coach. So it's volunteer led. I've been a dream coach, and we get trained on how to coach and manage the group. And then we have a dream manager that manages the program. And that's really the rhythm. And then we track when dreams are achieved and we celebrate those. We also have some nominations where we nominate, and we have certain funds available. We can anonymously nominate the company to contribute something towards someone's dream. And we make it very clear because it's supporting the dreams of the doers. We're not saying that sure it's going to make your dreams come true. You're going to make your dreams come true. We're just going to support you.
So is this a program that you do within your own company, or have you opened this up to other organizations?
We happily share with whoever is interested. We don't deliver this as a service or an offering to any companies, but we gladly share. And then there are organizations that do this, that will go in and train organizations, train their dream managers. So if you wanted to, that were listening, wanted to get more insight, Matthew Kelly's book, The Dream Manager, is the book that talks about this in the most detail. And then the case study in that book is about a business called Jancoa, Jancoa. And you can find a lot of it on the web and on LinkedIn. And there's a wealth of companies that are doing this type of thing in their organizations. And you always find different nuances in how they're doing it. But if anybody wanted to reach out, we'd gladly share whatever our experience has been and any templates or anything we have.
So let me ask you one last question, and I really have had such a great discussion with you. I could talk to you for hours on this topic. What do you hope people will come away with after hearing you today?
Yeah, I think the idea that the workplace culture and your personal life are separate is a thing of the past. And any organization that is really trying to have a total separation there, I think you're missing a massive opportunity to change people's lives in a really positive way.
Great message. That's a great way to end this. How can people connect to you, Orrin?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Orrin Klopper. And you can also you can email me. It's orrin@netsure.com. But I'm very responsive on LinkedIn. So if you do message me there, I can get hold of you.
Well, Orrin, it's been a great conversation, and I wish you and your company and your mission of supporting the dreamers, the dreams of the doers, I should say, it just continues on. I think you're onto something, and I really appreciate your time on this.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Thank you for the work you're doing. And yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. I've done a few podcasts, but this is definitely one that I didn't think it was going to go where it did, and I absolutely loved it. Thank you.
Excellent.